Brian Beeler here with Storage Review. I'm in HPE's headquarters down here in Spring, Texas, and we're taking a look at Alletra MP today. Now, Alletra MP has been out a little while. They just had a big release, Release 4, which added new features and capabilities, and we're going to tear into all of that. But specifically, we want to get access to the hardware in here, take a look at what makes this platform unique. We're going to be looking mostly at block today, but they also use this same hardware for file. They just have a different personality that goes on, and I guess you could expect in the future that they'd run an object option on this as well. What makes Alletra MP special, though, is the fact that it's a universal hardware platform. It's a 2U system. It's got 2 I/O nodes in the back and a little module that determines the personality of the system. We're going to take a look at all of that here in a minute. To help me get an understanding of what makes this hardware platform so special, I'm going to bring in some friends here. We're going to take a look at the hardware. We're going to take a unit out. We're going to rip it apart, see all the guts inside, and what makes Alletra MP work. I'm down here in Spring, Texas with my buddy Matt, and we're taking a look at HPE Alletra MP storage. So you launched this at a storage day, what has it been, a year and a half or so now?
Yeah, April of last year. Yeah.
Okay, and that was an exciting time, but it was also a big change for HPE to go away from dedicated storage SAN appliances. What really precipitated the move to go to MP?
Basically, what we saw in the industry was a change of how people look and adjust. I think the pandemic taught us a lot about predictability and what we can and can't predict. So what we looked at storage and said, okay, we need it to be scalable, we need it to last a long time, and we need it to be easy to manage and adjustable.
Right.
And that's what we did, is we created a platform to where I can start small and scale up without having to buy everything I need now and then prepare for 5 years in the future. And that's what this platform allowed us to do.
And I think what's really cool about it is, like I said at the beginning, you can do block or file on this with just changing the personality, right?
Yeah, so we have an M.2 drive in there that basically the OS installs on. And whatever OS you need to put on that, you can install that OS.
Yeah, that's on that long stick that we'll take a look at. I remember seeing that at the launch.
Yeah.
That blew me away. It's crazy, this little tiny piece of technology. There's nothing super novel about it, but it's just a neat concept, and that's really what lets you bridge the hardware to whatever software you want to run on it.
Yeah, exactly. Kind of going with that software-defined type personality that you can put on this.
And then this is also fundamental as part of the GreenLake management option too, right? So talk about how GreenLake plays into the hardware here.
Yeah. So we call our personalities like GreenLake for block or GreenLake for file and so on and so forth. So it's all managed via our GreenLake Cloud platform using what we call Data Services Cloud Console.
Right.
With the Data Services Cloud Console, you have nothing to install to manage this.
One thing that might confuse people about GreenLake is thinking that it's more of a financial model. It's not. It can be, right?
Yeah.
But it's also like customers are deploying real hardware in their environment and then using GreenLake to manage it.
Yeah, GreenLake is our brand. So if it's based on our GreenLake Cloud platform and a consumption model, or however you want to purchase it, I tell our customers if it's legal tender and it spins, we take it. And you decide how you want to pay us and how you want to consume it. But if you want to put this in your data center, still manage it the same way. You want to put it in a co-location, manage it the same way. Or if you want to do a consumption-based model, you can do that with our HPE GreenLake for block on Alletra MP. However you want to do it, we'll support you.
And so I want to talk about the hardware. We're hardware guys. We love this. And I know we've got a system set up here. You've got here, this will make it easier if I strip some of these bezels, I think. I assume the blanks are the controller nodes, or...
We didn't forget pieces. This is actually your controller nodes with I/O modules in the back.
Right, so, and then your storage JBOFs there. What's the connectivity like on these? How are these communicating?
So in the back end, what you have for the switch model, and these are the Aruba switches right here, you have 100 gig Ethernet basically in the back, of Fabric and NVMe over Ethernet in the back connecting these two. It allows expandability. So if I want to add more of these, I add, connect into the switch. I want to add more disks and more JBOFs, I add, connect the switch in the back. Basically, you add the platform, you connect it in, and you know that long stick that you talked about actually auto-discovers the new hardware, and then you can admit that hardware in Data Services Cloud Console.
Talk about scalability. I know you've added some of that as the platform's grown. I can't believe it's already released 4 in a relatively short window. I mean, in the SAN world, the software tended to move a little slower than what you guys are doing here. But talk about how the scalability has grown.
So the scalability, when we first launched it, we were trying to work with our 3-par systems. We had a lot of customers on 3-par that needed to go to a more modern architecture. So when we launched it, it was just your 2U with some hard drives or SSDs in the front, NVMe SSDs in the front, right there. And now we've added the switch version to be able to scale it. So now you can have up to 4 controller nodes or 4 I/O modules in the back. And then you can expand to petabytes on the data side from JBOFs in the back end, depending on how you want to scale it.
So the switch piece is what lets you grow past just 1 unit in an active-active. That lets you get, up to 4 I/O modules now, and then more coming.
Currently, yes, but you got to understand about this platform. The goal is to be able to start with 2U and then scale from there. So basically 2U, if I need more performance, I add performance. If I need more space, I add space. And it's really up to you how you want to scale.
And the platform itself is, I'm sure, a lot learned from ProLiant, from the server guys, right?
Oh, yeah.
And you're using AMD EPYC, which gives you a lot of core flexibility in these systems, which is something that storage hasn't always had available to it.
Yeah, so it gives us versatility with the AMD platform, and the way we've constructed the architecture of this to be able to start 8-core, 16-core, 32-core, and expand from there and then beyond. Because we know AMD is evolving, we evolve with AMD and be able to support more core counts within this architecture as well.
Okay, and I know we're going to rip one of these out and take the nodes out and look at all the detail, but before we dirty up this beautiful rack, let's go around the back and look at some of the I/O options and talk through that.
Yeah, sure. Sounds good.
All right, so we've spun around to the back. We actually had to spin the rack so we could fit all the camera gear in there to get this amazing shot. But now let's take a look at the back of this and kind of walk through what we've got in the MP cluster.
So if you remember from when we were looking at the front of it, the top you have your controller nodes. This is where the performance comes from. The bottom is where you had all the flash stored within these, the JBOFs you can expand based on capacity. And then we have our Aruba switches right here that handle the interconnectivity between your performance controllers and then your flash drives on the bottom. Okay. And then you'll notice on the top, this is where we have our host connectivity. Now here's the cool thing. You only need host connectivity from your controllers. And then the interconnect between the Aruba switches is what handles the connectivity back to your flash on the bottom. So this can be fiber channel, this can be iSCSI. You can actually do fiber channel and iSCSI if you need to.
But the way you've got this set up, then it makes it easier for the JBOF to be seen by all the controllers then. I mean, that's kind of the fundamental thing there.
Yeah, all disks can be seen by all controllers.
Right.
So from a high availability standpoint, performance standpoint, it's excellent the way we've done that.
Well, and then you don't have to worry about where you're pinning workloads or shares or whatever, that it's that the drives are all accessible all the time across all the nodes.
Yeah, exactly. It allows for that independent scaling as well. Right now we have fiber channel on this side right here, and then over here on this side we have a iSCSI controller, so you can do your iSCSI connectivity, Ethernet traffic, replication, things like that from over here. On the bottom side, and again, this is all standard OCP networking, by the way, so we can adapt as more modern versions come out. And then right here you have the interconnects, 100 gig fabric on the back end, the interconnects to be able to connect back to your flash on the bottom.
And the OCP comment's an important note because, again, this goes back to the server-esque design of the platform. I mean, that's really what you've got going on, although you've got 2 1U I/O modules or nodes per 2U chassis, so it's more dense than a typical server. But picking up on things like OCP means that your HBAs and NICs don't have to be special, right?
Exactly.
I mean, they're still obviously qualified and you've got your firmware and everything on there, but it's not, from a hardware perspective, it's not a unique part. And going back to the supply chain comment you made earlier, that probably can be all the difference in speed of delivery on these things.
Exactly. When you use common standards, it's easy to adjust, it's easy to adapt, but it's easy to have things made for this. We don't have to have things specially made. We don't have to have cards specially made. Only HPE can access this. Of course, we put our software on it, our love, all things on it. But again, by using that standardization, it allows us to grow and adapt. Because in the future, with whatever connectivity is available, swap that out, put in the new connectivity.
And it's happening right now. We're seeing a modest transition to like 64 gig fiber, and then on the Ethernet side, for your file workloads, I mean, that world's going nuts. 400 gig is increasingly common, and if you talk to the GPU guys, they really want you to be at those speeds to be able to fuel those AI workloads.
Yeah, the goal is to keep latency down to a minimum.
Right.
Already 64 gig ready, and we think about that when you need to go to 400 gig Ethernet, you know, the hardware doesn't have to change. You just put in a new card and you can go to that 400 gig Ethernet. We can just put some software on it to make it work with it. And that's the great thing about that platform.
And as we're standing here looking at the back of these, if you were to service one of these I/O nodes or to replace one, this is where you would do that. But you would also have customers that could upgrade their I/O modules here as well for whatever's next from either it's DRAM or AMD EPYC CPUs or whatever, right? They can do that upgrade or swap in place.
Yeah, and the cool thing about this is depending on the level of high availability you have, depending on your controllers and your flash, you can actually do that online. So that means online, I just take out one of these controllers, put in the new one, put it back in, and go on from there.
Yeah, and that's all managed through your GreenLake console. And like we were talking about before, adding another 2U chassis with 2 more I/O modules, replacing them, I assume should be pretty seamless and easy as well.
Yeah.
through the GUI. What else is going on in this rack that we're taking a look at?
Oh yeah, so we have the Aruba switching gear. Again, this is for being able to expand from a flash standpoint for more disk shelves. And then we have like a host. This is one of our DL380s right here. And then this would be your host connectivity. So these are Mellanox switches right here. And then we have top of rack like out of band management, some Aruba switches for host connect for our iSCSI connections.
Talk about the resiliency here too, because you have, what is it, a 6.9? How many nines?
We have 100% data availability guarantee.
100% on MP?
Yes.
Wow, okay.
Through our timeless program, we have 100% data availability guarantee on your platform. If you lose like one of these for whatever reason, something happens and you lose one of these, again, these are active. So using partner pathing, just your partner paths go down, you don't lose any performance, no degradation there. If you lose a total one of these, again, you still have availability with, depending on how many I/O modules you have, from these I/O modules, since everything's able to see all disks.
Right.
And then you have other principles where you can configure some of that availability through HAKH type principles within Data Services Cloud Console as well.
With this modern platform, tell me about lifecycle updates, because that's another thing that storage guys especially are sometimes reluctant to be on the latest updates. They often wait till things have been out a long time. Because, to be honest, I mean, we've had problems in the past with storage array updates, and that's just sort of the reality of the situation. But with this platform being more server-based, a little more modern in the design, much more modern in the design, how do the lifecycle updates work, and what's that customer experience?
Oh, I appreciate you asking that. So there's software and there's hardware, and we've actually separated both of them. So you have your software plane managed via Data Services Cloud Console, you have an on-prem GUI, all that stuff that you can manage it through, and then you have the hardware itself. Again, at the end of the day, you have 2U of sheet metal wrapped in power supplies, and then you have the I/O modules all operating independently. So down the line, AMD releases new processors, and we have more core counts. You're taking out the I/O modules, putting a new one in. So the outer shell stays the same. Your disk drives stay the same, because you know the disk drives, SSDs, that life cycle is a lot longer than your processor and the performance you may need. So it allows you to expand, but the hardware on the outside is going to stay the same. So I don't even need to take it out of the rack to do it. I just need to unplug the cables, especially if they're pretty like this, and make it easy to pull everything out. And then I just add on and add on. Now here's the really cool part to me, again, being a little bit of a nerd. Next generation comes out. Maybe we do have new hardware, next generation hardware. Again, you're talking about the back end where you can just plug that in and adapt as you need to go and still work with this platform as well.
You said that the drives don't change that much, or they have a longer life cycle, and they do, but now with Gen 5 drives out there starting to ship in volume, it would be easy enough for one day for you guys to just plunk in a Gen 5 JBOF and say, well, there you go, customer, that's available to you now.
Exactly.
Cable it up and treat it just like anything else.
Yeah, because we're able to support the latest NVMe over Ethernet, NVMe over Fabric, NVMe over Fiber Channel type standards. So when you support all the latest standards, you need to admit new hardware, do things, you just add the new hardware, it assimilates right into the system.
So Matt, I noticed that your guys did a really good job cabling this, which I don't always like. I prefer the gore when I'm in a lab. This is a little too pretty. And I know that you set this up for video because you actually have all the management ports connected, but what's going on with this guy? That's not an Ethernet.
Yeah, so you wouldn't want to leave this plugged in all the time, and we don't. Again, like you said, cabled and to make it look right and to know all the options. So that's a Bluetooth dongle.
Right.
So as a customer, I buy this, I want to rack and stack it. I stack it, I plug in all the cables, and then I can add this Bluetooth dongle. That Bluetooth dongle will allow me to do a mini setup to it. Basically, the goal is to get in an IP address.
Okay.
With that IP address, as long as your management network can connect to DSCC, you can create a blueprint within DSCC, Data Services Cloud Console. It gets an IP address. This serial number connects up to DSCC. You apply that blueprint, it configures everything for you. You go take a coffee break and come back and the array is configured and you start provisioning storage from it.
And you guys have an app for that too?
Yeah, we have an app. You can go to the App Store, download it, put it on your phone, and then be able to configure it directly from Bluetooth, making it easy.
Which is another important thing, because we talk about GreenLake being important from a management standpoint. We talked about lifecycle updates. We talked about adding hardware and making that simple. But the IT admin or the storage admin is now often a generalist, and anything you can do to make consumption of hardware easier, it goes a long way. So I know little things like that, sometimes we take them for granted, but that's a substantial usability benefit especially for the generalist. Well, as fun as this is, having this rack full of gear, I want to see what this looks like out of the rack. So we're going to yank out one of these units, get it into probably a quieter room where we can take it apart and look at it and really understand some of the intricate differences between this MP platform and others, and really look at how it comes together, what it looks like inside, where that AMD CPU sits, what all the other goodness is, and the personality stick. We're going to yank one out, take a look at all that, and show you more of the detail about what makes MP hardware special. So we're out of the noisy lab and we're in this really nice studio, which is actually pretty cool. It's a green screen behind me, so I'm not sure what Vince is going to put behind there, but I'm sure it'll be tastefully done. We've got, let's see, which is which? You've got the controller side and I've got the JBoff, right?
Yep.
But they look pretty similar, and I guess if you were to be able to see the front of it, we'd have the SSDs in this one and not here. But you can actually put storage in the controller system as well.
Yeah, so we have two different versions of this. We have what we call switched or switchless.
Right. The
switchless comes in like 2 node flavors with 8-core, 16-core AMD processors. And then with the 16-core, you can add more JBoffs. With the 8-core, you just can max out with 24 drives across the front.
For edge deployments, smaller, sort of more mid-range kind of deployments that would work out a little.
Yeah, for the customer who needs to start small for whatever reason, they can start small. Cool thing is you can still upgrade out of that 8 node.
So I was going there next. What if we start without the switch? Can we add the switch in and scale our cluster afterwards?
Yeah, so the eventuality is to be able to start with an 8-core and scale basically as much as it scales doing upgrades.
So we've taken out the I/O modules. They both have them. There's a little bit of a difference between the two, and we can talk through that. But let's go over the hardware inside this thing, because I think that's pretty compelling.
Okay.
So we talked before about the OS. We've got the paired drives on this up front. And actually, on this other one, this one's just got a single drive on the JBoff, but it's doing a little less, but just the one drive here.
Yeah, it still has an OS for some instruction sets that need to happen for the disk shelves only.
Okay. And then otherwise, this is a little bit more modest of a build from CPU, DRAM, and connectivity.
Correct. You only have the interconnects on the bottom here. You don't need quite as much memory because you're not processing as much, and then can't go up to 16-core, 32-core processors and stuff.
For throwing flash across the network, it's not that critical.
Exactly.
In terms of performance needs. And then when we take a look at this one, we started off with the SSDs before I got distracted, and this one's got a beefier CPU in it, more RAM, anything else, and the I/O is on the back end is more robust.
Yeah, so you're going to see the host connectivity here. You got fiber channel over here, Ethernet on this side, more memory, 8-core, 16-core, 32-core processors, another drive.
And then they've got the connectivity on the back end, blind mate back into the chassis, which is pretty common in enterprise SAN.
Yes.
You probably picked some of that up maybe from the HPE has a little bit of history there?
Yeah, we have a little bit of history of if you'll notice this, I dare call this a blade because I'll probably get in trouble. But again, we have a lot of intellectual property, a lot of property built in on how to connect things. And we have a huge history, a long history in that. And so you'll notice some of the interconnects are similar on the back plane.
Yeah, and then talking about I/O, let's revisit that because we've got in this one, in the controller I/O module, 4 OCP slots. The fact that you're using it in a storage product to keep it not proprietary, I think is really compelling, plus really easy to switch out as new NICs come to market. We were talking about 400 gig before. Those are out now, maybe not necessarily appropriate for this configuration, but the flexibility is there.
Yeah, and that's the point, flexibility, not having to change everything just to change one thing. Can you imagine having to buy a whole new array just because I need to change a networking card? It's a waste of money.
Yeah, that would be silly, for sure. And so this has got 4 cards in. What's a typical configuration? Is this kind of standard, or?
So it really depends. So right here we have fiber channel over here, Ethernet over here. You can have fiber channel and fiber channel if you want to do that. Okay. Other than that, it's pretty standard what you're going to get. You can't see the actual type of processor, but you could have, since this is a switched model, you could have either a 16-core or 32-core AMD processor underneath there. Mm-hmm. Other than that, it's always going to have 256 gigs of memory, and everything else is pretty standard.
Okay, and then the last card here, the management and out-of-band access module here in the middle, right?
Correct. Your management comes right in the back here.
And now, speaking of management, then we've also removed the personality stick as what I think it's kind of a neat.
I'm updating all my terminology.
Yeah, a neat name for it. It has an actual name, yeah.
Yeah, the chassis discovery module.
Okay, the CDM, and this sits above the left power supply from the rear.
So that's actually a proprietary port to be able to plug in a display adapter, but it's not, it looks like a DVI connection or a display port, but it's not.
Okay, and the Bluetooth dongle we were looking at before connects into
USB-C. There's an adapter to go into the Bluetooth dongle.
Okay, and then this is the module that when it gets powered up, this identifies the system to the rest of the cluster and says, hey, I'm here, come ingest me or something?
Yeah, it's what communicates to everything else. It's what communicates back up to our cloud-based platform to, like you say, as you want to lay down something to it or do updates, discovers other chassis that have been added to it, and also identifies it, because right in the back, and you can see some numbers on the back of these, it'll identify what node you're in.
And talk about the analytics a little bit, because I know the operation side is a big deal in terms of where HPE can provide value to the customers. What are some of the highlights that when you talk to customers, what are they telling you about the insights they're getting out of the system?
That's a really good question. So a lot of customers, the way they look at things is they're buying this from you, they want it to operate, and they want it to operate easily. They want it to make the decisions for them that they don't want to have to make. As we look at AI and what AI can do and machine learning, which we've had always as a part of our core systems on our platforms, but making those decisions, making intelligent decisions, looking at it. If there's a problem with it, I'm going to alert you, or I'm going to fix that problem myself. You don't even need to worry about it. Or maybe I'm a VMware shop and I need to just see all the way straight through from my vDisks all the way up through to what volume it's on and what host it's running on. With our cross-stack analytics and topology insights, we can do that. So giving you all that intelligence, and as I like to tell my customers, by the way, this is all in the same browser window. I never leave that browser window. I never log into another system. It's right there, right for you.
We talked a lot about the hardware here for, our focus in this conversation has been on block, but what does this look like, if at all different, other than the fiber ports for file?
So here's the cool thing. This I/O module, this controller right here, not a difference that you'd be able to see. Again, if this is a 16-core processor on your file, you're going to have a 32-core processor. Different I/O and different personality that's installed on those disks right there.
Sure.
You'll have, there's some storage class memory that's on the file side of the house, so we can process things and give you a little bit better performance for unstructured data. But other than that, exactly the same.
So you've been shipping these for a little while now. They're in customers, they're using them. What's the general feedback been on the block storage?
Customers love it. If you see kind of the trajectory of the sales, when you roll out something new, it starts a little bit slow, but the trajectory has been just much more than I think even we expected about the adoption rate. And they love the story about the scalability and how you can start small and scale up. So the reception has been great. We get a lot of feedback. Partners love it. So it kind of excites me, because when you do something, you talk about something, we're passionate about technology here. We love technology, and we love when our customers love the technology too, and they see the benefits. So the fact that we've decoupled the software and the hardware, the fact that you can start small, go with what you need, and then scale up as you need to, it's really setting well in the market.
There's all sorts of great stuff with Alletra MP. We've got a detailed paper on this solution on the website. We'll link to that. We'll also throw in a link for HPE's storage website. You can check all that out. They've got tons of resources to learn more about GreenLake and MP and block and file and all that sort of stuff. Thanks for checking out the video.